If you can take your seat, I think we'll start off with the meeting. All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, March 12th, 2024 meeting of the Comox Valley Regional District Board. Just want to begin by acknowledging that we are gathering today on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation, the traditional keepers of this land. And as we usually do, we'll begin with further with a call to action. And this is call to action 43, reconciliation. We call upon the federal, provincial, territorial, and municipal governments to fully adopt and implement the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People as the framework for reconciliation. And it is nice to be reading a call to action where some action actually has taken place, and that the federal government, the province, our regional district, and some of the local municipalities have adopted UNDRIP as their framework for reconciliation. There's obviously still more work to be done, but it's encouraging to see action taking place. First item up today is the adoption of minutes. Okay, Hillian and Brown, and any opposed? Any discussion? Seeing none. Any opposed? Seeing none. Then we'll look at business arising from minutes. We're going to follow up on the delegation from BC Nature, and I'll pass it over to staff for a brief verbal update.
Thanks very much. And I'm going to ask Doug DeMarzo, our General Manager of Community Service, to just provide this brief update from the delegation that attended 2 weeks ago at the board meeting. So Doug, over to you.
Thank you. And through the chair to the directors, you may recall BC Nature presented the delegation to the board recently, and it really focused on Canada's commitment to protect 30% of its land by 2030, commonly known as 30 by 30. As such, BC Nature was contracted to fill in the gaps to understand the conservation lands that are currently protected in British Columbia. And since that time, the CVRD has worked with them to share spatial data on our parks to help fulfill that commitment. So from this perspective, we're not really proposing any further direction on this matter, and we will continue to support BC Nature in their endeavors.
Great, thanks, Doug. And we have another piece of follow-up, and that's follow-up on Music Fest. I'll pass that over to staff again.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And this is a follow-up to the delegation from a couple of weeks ago, where Vancouver Music Fest spoke about its event, and spoke about having public transportation run to and from the event. Staff are preparing a staff report to come to the board at a meeting. Likely it'll be in April, that will address this particular request, as well as a couple of other matters on the same or similar topic. And Mike Zabarski is on the line if needed for any questions, but staff don't see any further direction needed at this point, because we do have that staff report in the queue under development. So
great, thanks, CEO. So let's follow up on past delegations, and we do have 2 for this evening. We don't require receipt motions for those, so we'll just go right ahead and welcome up first the Carolyn Rice from Make Back Roads Safe.
Thank you. My name is Carolyn Rice, and I have spearheaded the campaign to make back roads safe. We launched our campaign after, does that seem extra loud? Does it? Oh, I have spoken at this mic. It didn't seem that loud. We launched our campaign after many conversations with our neighbors revealed an underlying level of anxiety about safety issues related to speed and traffic volumes that had seemingly exploded overnight. By January 2024, we had visited every home over 4.6 kilometers with our leaflet, but for a single household, we achieved 100% support for our proposed solutions that are meant to restore safety and livability to our neighborhoods. After months of research and observing traffic patterns, we went on to film our lived experience. This has provided us with indisputable evidence that safety and livability is the #1 issue. Non-local traffic has taken over our neighborhood as drivers choose this route as a straight through run from Ryan Road, Comox Avenue, or to and from McDonald on their way to Courtney and other areas in Northeast Comox. McDonald, excuse me, is the most traveled shortcut route to or from Back Road for Comox residents. The traffic volume today far exceeds the capacity for safe transiting, in part because of the conflict caused by the number of homes with driveways that connect directly to Back Road. The most often cited safety issue for residents is the risk involved in simply leaving or returning to their homes. The high-speed traffic noise and street racing is disruptive and is causing safety issues in daylight hours and interrupting sleep. This is a known cause of stress, anxiety, and other health issues that are related to disrupted sleep patterns. A letter sent to the board, to the CVRD board in October, is in your package tonight, since it provides background stats and facts about Back Road and our proposed solutions. It is addressed to all governing bodies, including the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, all of whom have individual and collective responsibility for Back Road and Glacier View Drive. We understand that the ministry has direct responsibility for roads, however, within the CVRD. However, we have tried unsuccessfully since November to schedule a meeting with the local representative. We are asking the CVRD to communicate their support and the importance of such a meeting. We would like to share relevant videos, new information, and the petition that has been signed by CVRD residents. The second letter dated November 6th, and also in your package, specifically addresses our concerns over the upcoming sewer project and the impact of this project on all our neighborhoods along Back Road. Although we are not a designated detour route, Back Road is currently a shortcut route and will be the most desirable route once eastbound traffic on Comox Road is rerouted to Ryan Road. The sewer project is just 9 months away, and we have not been informed of an effective plan to manage traffic levels that will cause intolerable disruption to our neighborhoods. For the past few years, our neighborhood has seen more and more non-local traffic take over our roadway in a way that impacts our ability to live with a measure of safety and calm. Back Road is a collector road that moves people from adjacent neighborhoods to arterial routes, not an alternate arterial road for Comox residents to shortcut from the designated arterial roads. Vehicle speeds are not compatible with the condition, design, or the designated classification on this road. There is no separated and safe space for walking or cycling, and except for the short distance where a raised sidewalk exists, the remainder of the road does not provide for the safe use of its residents who are put at high risk against high-speed vehicle traffic. The most effective solution is to slow the traffic, and the only way to slow the traffic 24/7 is to install speed humps at distances that stop the street racing and excessive speeds, as well as a 3-way stop at McDonald that will improve intersection safety. Together, these measures will encourage non-local traffic onto the appropriate arterial roads and reduce the speed appeal of Back Road. It is the most cost-efficient and the most effective solution. We want to thank the CVRD in advance for taking up the cause to speak with Modi about the importance of our meeting at their earliest opportunity. We have also some videos here tonight that we think are more impactful than our words, and I'm thanking Lisa for helping to make that possible. And it may be a premature premonition. The first video, oh, is that number 1? Yeah, number 1. So number 1 is taken looking from Glacier View Drive. the entrance to the First Nation. Now, keep in mind, this is right through the section where Comox has installed calming islands. And you'll note that it does nothing to calm the traffic speeds through a very narrow section of road. Little bit of daytime street racing. I just want you to imagine that this is the street that you live on in your neighborhood. And this is between 4 and 4:30 on a weekday afternoon. And the second video is dusk at McDonald intersection, which showcases the traffic patterns at that intersection heading to and from Courtney and from Comox. Speed and poor intersection design, failures to stop, and sightline issues. Yeah, you notice he was swerved to the right in order to avoid hitting that car, rather than using his brakes. Part of the problem at this intersection is you cannot see the stop sign there, and it causes people to have to pull way ahead of the stop sign and into the road in order to have a sight line to their left. Again, the road is narrow, there's no sidewalks, there's no paved shoulder, there's a ditch, and there's houses right below the road on the, what is it? That direction, that side of the road. I'm a pretty good gauge of traffic speed now, taken so much video, and I'm going to say to you that there's not a single car except those that slowed to make the turn that are doing the speed limit. And the final video is after an afternoon game weekday at McDonald's. Again, failure to stop, and a speeding police cruiser and a sightline issue south of the intersection and a radius problem on that road for making right-hand turns, placing oncoming vehicles at risk of collision. Yeah. So you will see when that truck made that turn that he actually went fully into the other lane. And when you see cars coming in the opposite direction, you realize how dangerous that is. And again, it's about the design and the narrowness of the road and the design of the intersection. That now carries, as you can see, very high levels of volumes of traffic rather at any time of the day. Almost done. I think that's the end.
So Carolyn.
Okay.
The delegations are usually 10 and the time ran out during the second video. So I'm not
Okay.
wanting to rush you. I was just going to see if perhaps
I'm
you
done.
were ready. To
I am
conclude.
done. I am open to your questions.
Perfect. Okay. And I see people have already got some lights on. So I'll just get
All right.
those questions queued up.
My turn?
And so Director Grant, yes.
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to be clear what you're asking us to do here, because it seems like most of this is to do with Ministry of Transportation. And if I'm reading this correctly, you're asking us for support, or do you want us to send a letter to Ministry of Transportation asking them to meet with you, or what is it you're actually asking for?
Well, we do want you to involve yourselves in the ask to the ministry because we have failed at being able to secure a meeting. And there is a relationship here between Modi and the CVRD because of that, their role in managing the roads. But in the absence of that meeting, we felt that it was important to come and ask that of the CVRD to play a role in getting that meeting secured for us. We have a petition signed and we have information that is appropriate to be shared with the ministry.
So can you tell me why Ministry of Transportation isn't getting back to you? Or are they just too busy, or do you know?
Well, I don't know. Apparently the ministry is watching today. Maybe they could phone me afterwards. We did initially play telephone tag before Christmas. And we did touch base actually the night I was presenting in Comox. The ministry rep called me and we had a conversation and he was to get me some dates for a meeting, and that's, well, 6 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago.
Working at the speed of government, yeah.
Yeah,
I hear you.
well,
Yeah, okay. No, I'm just, I think that, we could, in my opinion anyway, we could probably send a letter and say, I mean, this is really largely their issue with all your requests. And so there's a limited amount we can do other than maybe
Right.
send a letter saying, when you meet with these people and deal with some of these issues, because we have issues with Ministry of Transportation in a lot of different areas, and they are slow to respond. I can tell you that. So anyway, all right, I will leave it at that because we don't usually make a recommendation at a meeting.
Right.
So I think that possibly we could get a staff report at the next meeting and then see what we want to do.
okay, thank you.
Thanks, Director Grant. And I know the CAO has a couple of comments to make, but I'll just go to the other directors first. So it's Director Hardy.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks for the presentation, Caroline. And I know I met with you a couple of weeks ago, and I know back in November during a forum here at the CVRD that you and your friends had dropped by to express your concerns about the back road. Again, with regards to the quest, I think it's fairly understandable that there's some frustration from the folks on the back road with regards to trying to communicate with Modi their concerns and issues with regards to the back road, and hence the delegation of the meeting with the CVRD today. I understand that the town of Comox, the city of Courtenay have been approached. This CVRD East has been approached with regards to trying to find some folks that'll help with the advocacy work that's required here. And I know it's not just you folks, but I know there's other folks within Area B that have expressed a lot of concerns about the lack of communication between Modi, the ability to go into their office and talk with somebody. Quite often the doors are locked. Nobody responds back to emails or phone calls. So it's very difficult. So I understand why you are here today. Also, my father, the video that you showed at the beginning is just a couple 100 meters away from my father's house. And my father passed away back at the latter part of October, but I know over the last 2 summers with him sitting out in the front yard and watching all these cars go by, anytime he dropped by, the first words out of his mouth is, when are you going to do, when are you going to effing do something about these cars that are going by here at 90 to 100 kilometers per hour? Somebody's going to get killed. So I understand your concerns and issues. I've heard them for a large amount of time from my father and from other constituents from the Comox First Nations as well. So I just want to express that as a kid that grew up on that road, I remember what the traffic used to be like, and I know what it's like there now. And even just trying to pull out of my old man's driveway after a visit was very difficult to do so. So thank you for bringing your concerns and issues. And long story short, I have no problems with supporting your group with regards to trying to get a meeting with Modi. And hopefully we can get that done for you. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Richard.
Thanks, Director Hardy and Director Morin.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I thought it was interesting, the shot of the police car not even pulling over the person that cut out in front of them. But of course, in the report, it says that the police are hesitant to pull people over who are having speeding or otherwise infractions because it's unsafe to do so. So yeah, I appreciate the time that you've spent to do the documentation, and that's always really helpful in these situations to have that. I was curious whether you have any accident stats for that section. I oftentimes we hear, well, there's not been any injuries, or we're wanting to try to obviously prevent that, but I just wondered if you did have any accident stats for that area.
I don't, and I have puzzled through where I would find that information. Because as the city of Courtenay pointed out to me on the very first phone call I made last April about how life had turned for the worse on Back Road, I was told nobody's been killed there yet. Well, 2 motorcycles a year ago within 8 months of each other, both were airlifted to Victoria, and one was not expected to live. And it's a sightline issue and it's a speed issue. The fact that someone hasn't been killed every single day there is nothing shy of a miracle. I kid you not. Because every single resident we talk to can talk to everyday vehicles riding their bumpers, encouraging them to ride faster or passing them when it is most unsafe to do so. People don't walk or cycle on that road anymore for fear of being killed, and I am not exaggerating. There are roads, cars flying off the roads along the road, along Back Road, adjacent to Farquharson Drive, where the homes are right below the road. One home has had 2 cars land in its backyard because it's lost control. I mean, the stories go on and on. So nobody's been killed, but there's been severe and significant property damage, significant vehicle damage, and significant injury caused by accidents or collisions or cars careening off the road or into people's properties. So there's a lot of stuff happening. They're just, to my knowledge, my recent history, I've lived there 12 years, and before that, I lived over the hill on Hobson. I don't know of any specific death, and I don't know where we'd find the stats of people being taken to the hospital. I do know at the McDonald intersection that the people living at that corner property where there's a cement block retaining wall that was put in when they made those improvements at that intersection, which has been done so poorly. It's why people are moving into the roadway to see past it, to get a sight line south. She is a nurse and she regularly helps people out of the ditch. And one young woman who was injured so badly, she was left paralyzed actually from an accident where she flipped her car into the ditch there. So there are those stories too, and I could go on and on, but you've got limited time here.
Yeah, I think it would be, a good idea to try to find the stats, because there's obviously been accidents and injuries, and those are important. So thank you.
Okay, the only place I thought of going to was the local towing companies, the hospital, ICBC as well. Okay, well, maybe that would be worth being part of our research. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Wendy.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Carolyn. And I'll go next to Director Kerr.
Thanks for the presentation, Carolyn. Question for staff, just the 3-way stop potential, the McDonald Road intersection. I'm just wondering, just jurisdiction wise, is that shared between Comox, the town of Comox, and Modi, or is that Modi exclusively? And I see that as the easiest quick win for us to get some stoppage along that very straight area of road where a lot of speeding happens. So just curious about jurisdiction on that.
That particular intersection, I believe it might be a confluence of the 3 jurisdictions: Modi, City of Courtenay, and the town of Comox. I know the City of Courtenay comes partway down McDonald Road Hill. I'm not sure how far it does come down, but then I also know that Modi and town of Comox are both in that area as well. So I don't have a specific answer for you, but I think it is in one of those areas of multiple jurisdictions.
Right, and Director Hillian.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to speak quickly to the earlier suggestion that we might write a letter to the ministry. I think we need to do a lot more than that, and perhaps our CAO will speak to that. Apart from advocating on behalf of our residents, I think we have some very key interests in what's going on this road. We have a major infrastructure project that's going to take place in the next couple of years that's going to impact traffic along there. We've heard loud and clear from Comox First Nation the concerns that they have about what the increase in traffic will do to their community. And we also see in your material that concern reflected. So I think based on the discussions that we've already had in relation to this issue, we have a clear interest in sitting down with the 4 jurisdictions involved and the Ministry of Transportation to talk about how we can come up with solutions. I personally would like to toll the road and put photo radar on it, but those may be ambitions that we can't realize. But certainly, I think it's incumbent on all levels of government to come together and work towards some solutions to what's obviously a problem. Thanks.
Sure, I can weigh in, and then thank you for the delegation, and certainly lots of the comments here from the directors, I think, reflect a lot of your interests and concerns. So I appreciate being able to hear these comments. I did make a few notes about the work that is going on that's underway by the regional district right now, and so I just wanted to describe them for the board. So my recommendation would be that before any support for the delegation is considered, there's a couple of things at play. One is we want to determine whether the delegation's points are aligned with the current sewer conveyance project and the eventual traffic management plan, which is currently under development. And then secondly, determining whether the delegation's points are aligned with Comox First Nation Chief and Council interests. We've been having dialogue with them. And so we wouldn't want to support the delegation's interests from my perspective, if they are at cross purposes to the work already underway as part of the sewer conveyance project and ongoing dialogue with Comox. In particular, Backroad goes through IR number 1, and we understand that Comox may be doing its own advocacy with Ministry of Transportation. So taking some time to understand these different interests would be important. Some additional points to consider include that the RD does not have control or jurisdiction over Backroad. That responsibility rests jointly with Courtney Comox and Ministry of Transportation for different portions. Courtney Comox and the ministry each work to evaluate and implement road safety within their jurisdictions based on their own policy and resident input. And each of the actions in the petition that you've noted, they are at least being considered in part by the sewer conveyance project and the traffic management planning process. Once the traffic management plan is complete, the CVRD would present those mitigation measures to the community. And just also finally to note that any traffic calming measures would be temporary and not permanent, because the work of the CVRD is around that conveyance project. As a point of action, I would suggest that after reviewing the traffic management plan with Comox in the coming months and considering the delegation's points alongside those Comox interests and the conveyance interests, the RD may be able to advise Courtney Comox and the ministry, again, as those jurisdictions having authority over portions of Backroad, that there's interest in seeing some or all of the mitigation measures that are in place during conveyance to continue on in perpetuity. That action would come following completion of the traffic management plan later on this year. So just some context for the existing work that is underway by the CVRD and clarity on the roles going forward.
Carolyn, thank you for the time you've taken to present the advocacy to us tonight. You certainly gave us a lot to think about. We, as a rule, don't take action on the night of a delegation, but I think at our next meeting, we'll be considering that. We'll be taking into account some of the CAO's advice, but also the comments around the table and the, I think, evident concern you've heard from everyone here. So thank you. Certainly, as I said, you've left us with a lot to think about, and we'll consider this at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you. And I
Thank you.
appreciate, James, you're putting this all into the context of what's going on. And I just want to add that some of our frustration in this whole campaign has been how complex it becomes when there's so many fingers in the pie, and that we keep bumping up against people doing this with us or saying, well, I don't know if I can do that because of. But I do know the positive of it is I do know that it's caused a lot of the governing, but all the governing bodies and people within them to have a lot of conversation about how they're delivering on these kinds of problems as a collective instead of being in silos. So I think your comments reflected that. So I want to thank you very much for your questions and for the time here tonight.
Okay, thanks, Carolyn. All right, and we have a second delegation this evening. I'm wondering, Holly Card, do you want to come up and speak on behalf of Large Comox Valley?
I'm always happy to speak on behalf of Large Comox Valley. My name is Holly Card. I'm the community leader, executive director of Large Comox Valley. And we're here to request a letter of support for our building project, the Anchorage. Larch's worldview is that we all share a common humanity. Each one of us has strengths and gifts, and we each have areas where we need support. One never knows from whom or where that support will come from. The labels that are on people are often barriers which makes it impossible, or at least very difficult, to see the gifts and celebrate them. As we know, get to know each other by living, working, and playing together, those barriers fade away. We see the person. The relationships are ones that are transformative for both parties. Large Comox Valley is one of 29 communities across Canada and about 160 communities in 37 countries around the world. We work to create a community both inside the walls of Large Comox Valley while inviting those in the broader community to come and be part of it. We also support people to be in the broader community of the Comox Valley. We currently have plans to build 16 more suites for supported independent living in 2 phases of each 8 suites in each phase. Large doesn't simply provide housing. It provides community. First, through the good friend and neighbor who lives on site and is there to provide support and be a reference person in case of any emergencies, big or small. And the anchorage will be part of the larger Large Comox Valley community. The anchorage is based on our experience of the I Belong Center Suites, which currently provides 6 suites for 6 people with an intellectual disability who can live independently with some support. And as you see on the slide, there's also what we call the amenity space, which is a common area where people can bring friends and family, and that those living in the suites can gather and spend time together. And they are suites of about 500 square feet each, self-contained. Why would we take on this $3.5 million project? What do you say to an 84-year-old mother whose 40-year-old daughter is still living at home with very few, if any, options to live elsewhere? I have a list of about 25 names of people who are seeking such housing. Safe and secure is a cry for these parents and family members, and the options are few. The anchorage is one response to that cry. L'Arche's mission is to support people through relationship, to find and develop their gifts so that together we can make the world a more human place. L'Arche is a place of hope. We ask you to support us in achieving our goal by supplying us with a letter of support that would accompany our application, along with the letter from our MLA and our MP. And I'm waiting to hear if the city of Courtenay will write a letter of support, because that's what's required for the funding application. Just want to thank you in advance for your support.
Thank you. And I'll open the floor up to see if anyone has any questions. I think it's a very powerful and moving presentation, so people may be feeling a bit quiet. See Director Hillian.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks very much, Holly. I've been to L'Arche since I was a young man in my 20s, and really admire the work that you do. You didn't say who the letter is going to. Who are you actually looking for funds from for the project?
At this point in time, we're applying directly to CMHC in their Affordable Housing Fund. And down the road, we'll also be applying to BC Housing. So that letter would be used as a backup support for those applications.
Well, I'm just hazarding a guess that there won't be any hesitation providing you with letters either here or at the city. Thank you.
Thanks. I've got a strong hunch that Director Hillian's right. And as I said, we don't make decisions on the evening, but I think you can feel this is in safe hands.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming this evening.
Thank you.
Right. And back to the prosaic, we're now going to receive some minutes. The Comox Valley Transit Management Advisory Committee minutes. There are 3 sets. We can take them all at once. Okay, Hillian and Grant, any discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, and that passes. And next are the Black Creek Oyster Bay Services Committee minutes for February 26th for receipt. Grieve and Grant, any questions or comments? Anyone opposed? And that passes. And now the minutes for the Electoral Area Service Committee for February 26th. Grant and Moran, any questions? Any opposed? And we'll move on to the Water Committee for February 27th for receipt. Okay, McCollum and Grant, any comments? Anyone opposed? And that passes. And we're now on to the Revenue Anticipation Bylaw. And this is for receipt. Okay, Hillian and Grant, and I'll pass this over to staff.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And Lucy Wacharek, our Chief Financial Officer, will be introducing this staff report on the Revenue Anticipation Borrowing Bylaw. Lucy.
Thank you. To the CAO, to the chair and directors, this item is a regular piece of annual business. Staff are asking that the 2024 bylaw to allow for borrowing, if needed, be given 3 readings. A new bylaw must be adopted each year. In the recent past, finance has not had to draw on this credit. However, it is necessary to have such a facility in place, considering the size of our budgets and the large capital projects being undertaken for funding. Staff are available for any questions you may have.
All right, I don't see any questions. Any opposed to receipt? All right, and there's a recommendation. Moved and seconded. Any commentary on the recommendation? Anyone opposed? And that passes. And we're now on to the recommended financial plan. I imagine we'll be going back to Lucy in just a second, but I'll pass this over to James first.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And yeah, I'm very pleased to introduce Lucy Wacharek, our Chief Financial Officer, on the staff report that provides a summary of the financial planning process that the board has walked with us through over the past couple of months. And Lucy, I think you have a PowerPoint to go along with this presentation? Yeah. So this is the culmination of several months of very heavy lifting by your staff and by yourselves in committee, board, commission meetings. And I won't speak any further on it, but Lucy's here to present, and then her staff are also here to help with the conversation. So
Lucy quickly dug in and get a receipt motion. Thank you. Moved by Hillian, seconded by Moran. Thanks, guys.
The clicker. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. Once again, through the CAO to the chair, the staff and I are really pleased to be here today bringing you the CVRD 2024 recommended financial plan. Now, as we are in March, we're at that final stage of the budget process. All the CVRD services have now received the required endorsement of proposed budgets. Where amendments were required, those have all been made. The individual budgets are now drawn together into the recommended budget. Sometimes the clicker wants to be a bit difficult. So today I have for you just a short presentation focused on these main areas. I'll touch on the overall recommended and the capital budget. The focus will be primarily on 2024 and the changes that occurred between your proposed and your recommended budget. We'll circle in once again on implications to households and just a really quick touch point on the public participation. And then we'll move to the next steps and recommendations. The recommended operating budget is $108.6 million. From this chart, we can see where the key changes have been made between proposed and what was recommended. We have some increases to operating costs, and as is typical, well, with surpluses drawn in at this time, the increases to contributions to reserves has gone up. Overall, there was a $9.9 million change to get to recommended operating budget. The biggest component of the change is related to surplus, and I'll speak to this in a moment. I did want to point out firstly that the amendments put forth through budget deliberations were small in number. For the Hornby Island garbage service, $150,000 has been added for paving at the recycle depot. For Hornby Island Community Facility Services, $17,500 has been added to support the Art Center. For both Denman and Puntledge Communities facilities, $15,000 has been added to tax requisitions annually to support the ongoing operations here. And for Bain Sound, Area B, Area C, Parks and Greenway Service, $10,000 has been added to support weed control efforts on beach accesses. At the last meeting, the board asked that the recommended budget include the one-time $20,000 grant amount to Lush for the Comox Valley Food Policy Council. With the 2023 year-end process now nearing completion, the existing surpluses have been rolled into this budget. In total, the surplus is $12.8 million. I do believe directors are aware of multiple areas in your proposed budget where expected surplus funds were included to help manage operations and keep tax requisitions low. It is important to point out that approximately half of the surplus is related to unfinished project work from 2023. And this is what we refer to as our carry forward projects. And lastly, a significant services of the CVRD who have large budgets in themselves, about $5 million of that surplus is associated with water and sewage treatment, and $2.5 million is associated with solid waste management. The recommended capital budget is $84 million. And from this chart, we can see where the key changes were made between your proposed and recommended budget. A decrease to land and improvement category, a large increase to infrastructure, as many capital project carry forwards fall into this category. So overall, there was an $8.7 million change to get to recommended capital budget. The biggest component of this change is related to item 1 on the slide here and carry forward projects. Again, for the capital side, a limited number of resolved amendments. The new turf field project has been removed from the plan, and that was $5.7 million. The King Coho sewer project has been increased by $123,000 to address current cost projections. And $90,000 has been added to the Union Bay Playground and Trail project, and this is to allow for some enhanced scope work here. Determining the capital carry forwards is a process tied to the 2023 year end. All known 2023 budget carry forwards have been incorporated into the recommended budget. The budget includes $46 million in tax requisitions, $46,602,000 in tax requisitions. This figure has decreased by $96,482 from the proposed budget. Staff have completed the updates to tax rates per services and have refreshed the estimated implications to households. With that small change between tax requisition figure prepared for proposed and recommended, those year-over-year amounts are close to what we provided to you earlier on in this process when we brought you the proposed budget. So there's some changes here, but not very much changes. You'll see some decreases here. The year-over-year increase-decrease ranges from $26.21 to $65.65 for municipalities. And for our rural areas, the range is from a reduction of $47.38 to $135.05. This updated information will be put out on our website where the public can access this information. As we've done each time we've been together over budgets, a quick update on public involvement. Greater involvement has occurred this year, and those hard stats will tell us 3 questions, 7 pieces of feedback, and 6 followers. Noting as well that there are other means of feedback. Citizens often connect with elected officials and senior staff at times. Staff will continue to advance the engagement site and promote further engagement. And lastly, at this side, I just wanted to comment on the alignment between financial planning and board strategy. Yes, the budget includes higher requisitions in prior year. Important new and enhanced services will be provided to the community through the endorsement of this budget. This slide includes 6 specific board strategies. These and others align within the recommended budget to advance the direction laid out from the board. The options for the board today are to endorse the recommended budget and proceed with 3 readings. Alternatively, make recommendations for amendments. And with our next steps, and once the bylaw is fully established, the budget package information currently out there on the website will be updated to reflect your approved budget. The new budget will be activated within our internal systems, and this will allow departments to start moving forward with plans. The requisitions are sent out to our participating municipalities, and the rural taxation information is forwarded to the province. Also noting for our rural areas, tax inserts will be provided as a means to inform of implications and service enhancements specifically in each of those areas. So we'll be working on those and getting those out with the tax information. And lastly, staff are recommending the adoption of the recommended budget, and we are here to answer any of your questions that you may have.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lucy. And I see a question from Director Grieve.
Well, actually, Lucy, it's not a question at all, but through the chair and the CAO, I think I speak for everyone around this table to expressing the gratitude to yourself and your team for the gigantic amount of work that you've done on this budget. And it's looking really good. I mean, it's amazing how many plates you have to keep spinning at this regional district with all our services, and everybody's interests are not always aligned. So I just want to extend an incredible thank you very much for all the great work you guys put in.
Thank you, Director Graves. We'll share that out to the many departments and many other staff that help us get here. Thanks.
All right, and see a question from Director McCollum.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, my initial comment is that I really appreciate the adjusted timelines that we embarked on this year. I think the process has gone very well, and I would definitely say it's an improvement over past years. And so, yeah, I wanted to highlight that comment. I have two concerns on 2 different related budgets that I brought up at the time when we were at our separate committees, and I feel I want to raise them again, although I don't know that it's necessarily a commentary that will change anything significantly in the budget. But my major concern is around our staffing decision with the new regional parks and trails service. Just looking at $170,000 of wages and benefits to a service that we're really just initiating. And I'm not suggesting that we would do a reduction in staffing to see a lower tax requisition, but I would prefer that those funds be held and used as a starting point for building up a reserve rather than jumping into hiring an additional staff complement when we don't yet have a plan in place. And because once that staff is initiated, then it's part of our regular operating costs, and that's, you know, money that will not go toward land acquisition, but into our operating budget. And so I would like us to consider having a second thought on adding that at this point, just given where we are in kind of starting up that service. So I don't know if other directors share that concern, or if anyone else wants to weigh in on that. I know that we did talk about it and there was some rationale provided, but I think my concerns around it remain after giving it consideration. And then the other concern that I have is just around our recreation complexes service. Our contribution to reserve this year is higher than it was last year, and it's also higher than it will be next year if the budget stays as it's laid out in the 5-year plan. But I am concerned that with our desire to initiate a GHG reduction plan and just the fact that we have aging assets, that what we're putting aside for doing improvements down the road and even maintaining our existing facilities may not be adequate. And so I just want to highlight that I do wonder if we would be better off putting a more significant contribution toward the reserves, and maybe not in this deliberation, but definitely going forward. And I'll leave my comments on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to the directors. I was going to comment on the first point around the staffing for the new regional parks and trail service. So in the service itself, the line item salaries and wages covers off an allocation of positions that support that service. It's not just all dedicated towards one position, as you know. And then I think, as was described during the Parks and Trails Committee meeting, the current strategic plan that the Parks and Trails Committee is working through and developing, we need to work through that before really landing on certainty around that new position for the regional Parks and Trails position. So depending on how that process unfolds, if there is a need following that process for a position, then we would want to be able to pursue that opportunity, but not until we've done that work on the strategic planning process. If the resources aren't there, then we wouldn't be able to take any further steps on a strategic planning process should that need arise, then until another budget cycle goes through. So there was some forethought to that and some sequencing, and I think that was some of the context that was provided at the committee meeting, but I share it again.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. I didn't go back and listen to the dialogue. I know you provided some good context at the time. And I guess, and at the time, I mean, I think what we're putting aside in the tax requisition is, it makes sense. It's just getting that staffing complement up this year. Is there an opportunity for that to come back to the service later in the year? Like, is that going to be revisited, or will we just hear that position has been filled at some point? Like, how will that proceed?
A couple of things on that. This position in particular, it's a reallocation of a vacant position that was within the organization already. So it isn't a new FTE in that sense. But separately, when the strategic planning process, as it unfolds and as it evolves, and we present that document and that plan to the committee, then that would be the time, I think, where you would see just what is it going to take then to implement that strategic plan? What are some of those steps needed to take those first steps? And that's, I think, where you would see that need for the resources. I think that will come when the strategic planning exercise comes to an end and we've got a document in front of us.
I just had one more, if you want.
Yeah, please.
Right, if it would help, just one more comment in how we actually budgeted for this figure. It is a reallocated position, and maybe from an administrative perspective, I understand the concern, because the service isn't going to be up till the end of the year. And as we drafted this budget, we talked about that, and there was always this intent, wait till we have the plans developed and then determine where this position is more where it's needed in implementing plans, and then bring that position on. So I understand that that's not the way that it's reflected in the dollars that are in this budget, and we've left it here budgeted 100% for the year. And in reality, and the plans that we were imagining on when this position would come on, that it would likely generate a surplus, and then those dollars going into reserves and helping to the future. It just becomes a little bit difficult when you have existing positions that you're repurposing to go to that place of then only budgeting them for part of the year, and then you're needing to deal with topping it up in the next year. So it may have looked aligned from a total dollar value that we're adding to this budget, just because of that approach that we took as well. Let's leave you with that on that.
Great, thanks, Lucy. And Director Brown.
Thanks. I had a question about the budget process, but now I'd like to comment on this too. I had similar concerns just because we're trying to build up that reserve for purchase, obviously. There's a line in there, other professional fees of $54,000. Is that also staff, or is that the contractor that's doing the strategic plan, or what's that line? Because it's going up. Well, that's 2023, so it's 135,000 for 2024.
Through the chair, I'll just make sure that we're looking at the same place. So in our regional parks and trails service and our approved, are the budget going into 2024 is, Kelly's just has it up. And we have 115,000 is there for regional parks and trails in other professional fees. That does not include staffing. Those lines would not, those lines of expenditures would never include staffing. The staffing are in salaries, wages, and the benefits associated. Included in, I'm sorry, can you just say the second part of your question? Your other wondering about that line was?
Just wondering what that line is.
What is it? Okay. So we have a couple of carry forward projects that are in there for acquisition strategies. So any consultants or professionals that we would engage in that. And that in total is $95,000. And then liaison support for Comox First Nation at 10,000 and strategic planning for Comox First Nation at 10,000 as well. So that's what's included in there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Did you have a further question? So came up rapidly. Okay, off you go.
I'm just curious. I'm disappointed I'm always disappointed in local government with the community's engagement with budget process. And so just wondering, as a comparison to last year, I know you guys did a lot more work on trying to get engagement. And still we got 7 responses and 3 questions or something. Is that more or less than previous years? Just hoping.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Through the chair, I certainly share in that frustration because it is a lot of time and effort on staff, and we want to do it and we want to see the results come, but in my whole career, it's always been quite difficult and finding ways that really encourages more. Is it how much improvement did we have from the year before? The year before we concentrated on the educational theme, so we did the town hall virtual, which we recorded and put it out to the website. I think if I'm not mistaken, we had about 7 people participate live when we were recording that. We were quite hopeful that we would have had more. And if I'm recalling correctly, we did not have any questions that were submitted individually where we brought up input or updates to the various boards and committees, et cetera, as we went along. So we did better. It's marginally better. I think it's quite hopeful that I feel quite hopeful about those stats, as small as they are. However, I was pretty pleased to see that we actually had followers. So we're gonna keep doing it. And I guess that was one reason why I put there's various different means where public gets involved, and they may not necessarily want to go to that site. But I am cautiously or non-cautiously, I'm very optimistic of what I saw this year. So we did better, and we intend to do better next year too.
Okay, great. Thank you for all your work on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. And by my math, that's almost a 50% increase. So if we keep that trend line going, there may be upwards of 14 people next year. So just going. Director Arbor.
Yeah, to me, it's more the way we report on the public input, because definitely in my area, there's literally hundreds of people that have contributed to the budgeting process. If I think about Higher and Hornby, every service, there's a lot of community members that pay attention. on the big corporate assembly of it all, I'm not surprised that it's just 7 people. I think the general public mostly cares about on that big number, what's the year-over-year increase? I think we all know that in municipalities and regional districts. But in terms of inputting on the big picture, I think that the public is counting on us to do that granular work with committees, with interested parties, with people who come and present here. So I think there's thousands of people that get involved in our budget process. So when I see 7 and just general, the rest of it is not quantified, we could actually quantify it if we care that much about it, because I think on Hornby alone, I can say that HIRA is, I think 90 people on like 9 committees. And those are just 9 services that we have, right? So, that's my comment.
Yeah, I'll just make one comment if I could. That's a really important point, because that's having community involved at different key points when you're actually trying to determine what you want to do with these services, whether you need to enhance them, whether you want to put them out there at all. The involvement at those points in times is really important and very valuable. So I oftentimes think about that. What is the value of having people engaged in this very last step? So it was one thing that we've had conversations of. We want to keep Engage alive, not just for this end process. Those are some of our last thoughts. So where can we maybe use that to solicit some other types of input and feedback from the public in different ways? So really good. We'll try to, and we'll also spend some time quantifying, because it does help us to know whether we've been successful or not in it.
Thanks, Lucy. So seeing no further lights, we're still on receipt. So anyone opposed to receipt?
Can I ask one?
Oh, of course.
Sorry. I'm only recognizing that there was a second part of Director McCullen's question that we didn't answer. Just one quick comment, if you're okay. I appreciate Director McCullen bringing that up again. And what I'll say at this point is, for the current financial plan, the service is funded. So we're in essence squeaking by. However, you've heard us say that it is top on our list, and we will be moving forward with fiscal strategy to one of the biggest things will be addressing reserve balances. So we want to start to dig in and really understand that service being one at the top, as I'm saying. So we're hopeful. We haven't really determined all the timelines around that yet, but as we get later into the year or early fall, we want to be able to come back to this table and start to bring forward information that we're seeing and align with new policy, et cetera. And that'll help us as we get to the next round in making sure that important service is planned well to be able to sustain that operation. It's quite big as well, right? It's almost $10 million service out there. Okay. Welcome.
Great. Thanks, Lucy. And at this point, I'm open to a recommendation on the budget. All right, that's being moved and seconded. So this is it. Are there any further questions or comments? All right, and seeing none, anyone opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. That's been round of applause. Yeah, that's been a highly successful process, and thank you for allowing us the time to consider this. This new process is allowed. So yeah, much appreciated. All right, on to the gripping matter of the designation of statutory officers. I've got a receipt motion here, and Jake's gonna just enliven this subject for us.
Yeah, Jake Martins, our general manager of corporate services, will be introducing the staff report on designation of statutory officers.
Thank you, James, and through the chair to the board. Yes, this report is being brought forward to undertake some administrative housekeeping concerning the regional district's statutory officer positions. The central change, as the board will know, is the change in just the senior leadership position and reflecting that within our bylaw. But we've also taken this opportunity to look to clarify and confirm a few of the duties and responsibilities concerning those positions. For the most part, this report doesn't reflect a massive change to the bylaw. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'd be pleased to answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions, comments, curiosities? Okay, that sounds good. So we're on receipt, and we can just dispense with that. Anyone opposed? And then I'll ask for a move on the recommendation.
Where's the recommendation?
Okay, here Hillian and Moran. And any opposed? That passes unanimously. And next is the RDN RGS referral. And I'll thank you. Motion to proceed. Can I get seconded? And I'll pass it over to staff.
Great, thanks very much. Brian Chow, our Planner 2 Long Range, will be presenting this report, and Robin Holm, Manager of Long Range Planning and Sustainability, will be supporting that discussion. So Brian, over to you.
Okay, through the CEO to the chair and to the board. First of all, I do have a presentation prepared. Yes. So let's wait for the presentation to get going. Thank you very much, Lisa. So through the CEO to the chair and to the board, the regional district of Nanaimo began their RGS standard amendment back in 2018. Last July of last year, they sent a draft to us for review and comments, and then we provide our comments to them. Earlier this year, they sent us the final version of RGS for us to review and to either accept or refuse. And under the LGA, we're obligated to provide our feedback by March 26 in a couple of weeks. As a summary, the Regional District Nanaimo RGS has 11 goals, but in the sake of time, I summarize, I group them into 8, and they're related to climate change, transportation, growth management, housing, economy, culture and heritage, public infrastructure, and partnerships. What I did was we review the 2 versions of the RGS, and we do share a lot of common goals between CVRD and the RDN's RGS. And they include that we both have a focus on climate action, promote sustainable transportation, especially interregional transit, advocate for affordable, diverse housing, supports economic resilience and agriculture, emphasize social vibrancy, and build strong relations, especially with First Nations. Based on the review of the 2 of their RGS, I do see that we do have a lot of collaboration opportunities with our neighbors to the south, Regional District Nanaimo, and they include promote interregional transit, especially there will be increased bus service down to Deep Bay, and theoretically you can take the bus all the way down to Victoria by November of this year. There will be opportunities to share information and harmonize policies between the 2 local governments, boost regional tourism and diverse economy, and that can be influenced by our regional tourism strategy plan, and continue building on strong relations with First Nations. When we provided our comments back to the RDN, they acknowledge all of our comments, and they see that there's no further actions or changes required on their part. Therefore, staff recommends that we, CVRD, agree to their RGS, accept their RGS, and that this resolution be forwarded to the chair of the Regional District Nanaimo. I'm here to answer any questions you may have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I see a question from Director Hellion.
Thanks, Chair. I have to confess that I did not read the entire plan. And so I really, really appreciate your very concise summary, and I'm glad to see that there's an alignment that we can support. Thanks very much.
All right, and Director Morin.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much for the summary. I was curious about, I haven't quite pinpointed it in here, but of course, we've done the coastal flood adaptation strategy. But I didn't see where Nanaimo was doing their own strategy. And I do see that in the opportunities. I just wondered if there was anything you could say about that and how that's going to go forward.
Through the chair to Director Morin, that's a great question. We have been working very closely with the Regional District of Nanaimo on our coastal flood mapping. We began on really similar initiatives, a similar timing. And so as we both completed our coastal flood plain mapping, we have been working together to move forward with implementation. And so the two planning departments have worked very closely together in terms of implementation plans, and we're at different stages and also looking at different approaches. The RDN is continuing with collecting further data on their river mapping, and they're updating their development permit areas to incorporate the flood mapping in that way. There's been some minor changes to their floodplain bylaw, but at this time, it still is in the works in terms of being updated. In the future, with our work that we're moving forward with in terms of updating our floodplain bylaw, we plan to work with the regional district in terms of education and outreach with practitioners in the field to ensure that all of our engineers are getting the same information and that everyone has an understanding of the provincial guidelines and the changes that are going to be coming to all of our bylaws.
Just a quick follow-up. You read my mind. That was going to be my comment and suggestion that there would be a great opportunity for some collaboration around education, and particularly with developers and in terms of land use to sort of all get on the same page. And so thank you so much for that.
Yeah. I'll also just add that we're also working with the city of Courtenay in terms of the floodplain updates as well. With the flood strategy, I've heard yesterday that will be coming forward to council in a few months. And so when the city is prepared to update their floodplain bylaw, we will also be working with staff to ensure some sort of alignment.
Great, thanks, Robin. Not seeing any further questions, so I think we're still on receipt. So any opposed to that? And then we have the recommendation here if someone wishes to move that. Okay, Grant and Brown, so that's on the floor. The recommendation, any comments? All right, any opposed? Great, that passed unanimously. Thanks so much, guys. And we're now going to move on to the Electoral Area Service Committee from yesterday. And so we have a couple of matters that these are all voted on by areas just A, B, and C. And the first one, recommendation one regarding a letter of non-concurrence for the site tower. And I believe Director Grieve, you wanted to move one. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Innovation Science and Economic Development Canada is the governing authority over antenna arrays and placement of such in the country. And they have a very low bar regarding notification and engagement in the community. We first heard about this when it came forward almost 4 years ago, because I think outside of maybe one ad or two ads in the paper and a direct mail out to the immediate neighbors that are, I think, 2.5 times the distance of the height from the tower. That was all they got. So there was quite an uproar over that to begin with. So what the CBRD did is we came up with a policy that had more fulsome consultation, including open houses. We forwarded it to the municipalities actually for comment. I don't know if you guys remember it coming forward to see if you guys wanted to buy in on it, but as it is, I think we're the only jurisdiction in BC, maybe Canada, that has these extra steps required. So the open houses went forward, including an extremely lively one at the Merville Hall, and followed by some petitions. So they went back to the drawing board, and TELUS decided that they were going to review it. And what they did is they decided to move the antenna about 200 or 420 meters away, farther into the field and away from the chicken barn. But of course, that excited a whole new a number of neighbors that now all of a sudden had this in their line of sight. So again, we had we had 3 delegations yesterday and some good comments. I think that the big thing was the fact that nobody wants this in their backyard or on their sight line from their dwelling, and you can't really blame them. I mean, I wouldn't want it in my neighbor's yard either, even though it's not 5G. It's a 4G frequencies. So a long story short, I think that what we came up with, and we crafted it, we're not supposed to do this, as you know, make policy on the fly, but we did a collaborative attempt to put together a recommendation that was supported unanimously, basically sending it back for TELUS to see if they can come up with something that fits their footprint, because they need a 1 square kilometer footprint apparently for the tower to work as far as their engineering is concerned. But yeah, I know that better cell coverage will be welcomed by many in the community, but hopefully TELUS can come up with something that doesn't impact the farming community quite as much as either of these 2 proposals. Something a little more inventive, perhaps. So that's where we're at. We're sending this back to Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada. And hopefully there'll be something come out of it that will be a win-win for the entire community. One can only hope. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Director Grieve. Any further comments on this before we call the question? All right. Anyone opposed? And that passes unanimously. And next is recommendation 2 regarding development on floodplain. And this is also a vote for the areas. It's being moved. Someone care to second that? Second. Seconded by Grieve. And are there any comments on this? All right. And any opposed? Director Arbor is opposed. All right, and that passes. And next, we're going to move on to bylaws and resolutions. And for first, second, and third reading, we have bylaw number 789, the ticket information bylaw. And this is second. Okay, moved first and second, and this is also a vote for the areas. And any comments on that? All right, any opposed? All right, and for third reading? Moved and seconded for third. Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Next is bylaw number 679, regional district bylaw adjudication ticketing, bylaw number 679, first and second reading.
Move. Second.
Thank you. And that's again for the areas. Any opposed? All right, and some move for third reading. Okay.
Second.
Thank you. And any opposed? And that passes unanimously. And this next piece is bylaw number 816, revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw that we discussed earlier today. And this is to get first and second readings concurrently. This is a vote of everyone. Okay, moved and seconded. Any comments? Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. And then again for third reading. First and seconded, thank you very much. Any opposed to third reading? That passes unanimously. And now we're on to the 24 to 2028 financial plan and capital expenditures program bylaw number 819 for first and second reading. Moved and seconded. Any comments? Any opposed? Passed unanimously, and we're on to third reading. Thank you. And any opposed to third reading? Passed unanimously, and now we're on to final adoption. And this is building bylaw 681. This is the vote of the areas for final adoption.
Move 681 for adoption.
Thank you. Second. Okay, perfect. All right, A, B, and C. Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. And last, we have Union Bay Water Tolls and Other Charges bylaw number 278. And this is for final adoption. It's a vote of everyone. Moved and thank you. Okay. All right. We'll be done. We'll be done soon. We'll be done soon. Okay. Anyone opposed? And that passed unanimously. One more thing. Thank you. Okay. And I'm sure no one is opposed. Thanks, everyone. That was a really quick meeting. We're adjourned.